Happy Friday morning, everybody. My name is Peter Range. I'm your host of The Catholic Citizen. Welcome to the best 20 minutes of your weekend happening right here. I hope it gets better than this. But anyway, folks, it's great to have you back on The Catholic Citizen. On today's show, we're talking about what is ultimately the purpose of Catholic education, and are our bishops living up to the call to ensure that Catholic education is shepherding souls towards heaven. Also, we're going to talk about Flora Gill. Not sure if you've ever heard about Flora, but it's important that we talk about her. Lastly, the CDC, they're back at it again. They want you to wear a mask. So we're going to talk about it today right here on The Catholic Citizen in just a second. Folks, great to have you back with us week in and week out as you enjoy and we celebrate the truth of the faith and how the faith has the answers to all the issues and all the problems that we're facing in the world today. And we can have the confidence that Jesus once had on a stormy lake when he then stood up from sleep and said to the storm, "Be calm and be still." That's the disposition that our souls can have even in the midst of these stormy waters, because we worship and we are one with the Son of God, Jesus Christ, who became flesh to become one with us, who tells us even in the midst of this darkness, folks, there's resurrection coming. So we really don't have to fear. But with that being said, before we get to the show, just want to remind you, there are some amazing people at this little organization called Casa Bea. Casa Bea are tremendous individuals, and they can clean amazingly well. You see my forehead today? It's clean because of, no. All right. Anyway, Casa Bea Cleaning, whether it's your home, it's your office, wherever it may be, please patron Casa Bea. They're pro-life. They love this show, and they sponsor us. They help keep the lights on. So please sponsor Casa Bea Cleaning today. All right, speaking of sponsoring, we need you to sponsor the show. We can't have a show without you. So thank you so much. If you have donated to the show, we tremendously appreciate it. It's actually amazing that so many people are contacting me saying, "Hey, I really like the show. Thank you so much. Keep preaching the truth," all that stuff like that. I'm like, people are actually watching this stuff. TheCatholicCitizen.com. We need you not just to watch it, but to be a part of it. Okay, it's literally not going to continue unless we have some more donations. So TheCatholicCitizen.com if you want to kind of continue to hear my diatribes week in, week out. Why you want to hear this? I don't know. I enjoy doing it, but please join us at TheCatholicCitizen.com. All right, to today's show. Number one, the purpose of Catholic education. It is not so that we can learn stuff, so then we can go out and get a nice job, and then we can make lots of money and we can retire to Florida when we're 65 and live happily ever after. That is not the purpose of Catholic education. But boy, I feel like, a lot of our Catholic institutions seem to be promoting that type of message, or promoting the type of message that sports is most important, or promoting the type of message that being a social justice warrior is most important. Not that I'm not for justice, not that I'm not for fighting socially for justice. However, the way that it's portrayed in Catholic colleges today, it's just, I struggle with it. I have a friend, his name is Michael. Michael posted this on Facebook the other day, and I thought it was a good point, and I wanted to bring it up to start the show today. He wrote, "For my Catholic friends, I wonder how many of the bishops that are eager to properly comply with Pope Francis's motu proprio about restricting the traditional Mass are making sure that colleges and universities in their dioceses are complying with the Ex Corde Ecclesia, the papal document issued by Pope John Paul II in 1990, which requires the presiding bishop to ensure that theologians on Catholic colleges and universities are teaching in communion with the church." Now, I haven't seen any progressive bishops out there and yes, they are progressive bishops. They should just be Catholic bishops, but by the stances they take, it's very clear where they stand on issues of human sexuality and different things of that nature. Now, with all of that said, Colleen's coming in the show. She just wants me to keep going, but she's going to come in the show. She might even come on screen. She's on screen now. Folks, first ever, unprecedented here at the Catholic Citizen. We want to make sure that the shot is clear, however. All right, now, there hasn't been any bishops dancing on their social media accounts saying, "Oh, we got you now. We're going to put down the Latin Mass." They're just kind of saying, "Oh, we're going to review and we'll make prudent steps," so on and so forth. Okay. But Let's go back and look, because I didn't even know this document existed, but it's Ex Corde Ecclesia. Sorry if my Latin's off. It's been off because I don't speak Latin. Anyway, let's review some of the things that it says in this document. Number one, that Catholic institutions should practice fidelity to the Christian message in conformity with the magisterium of the church. This is the role of Catholic institutions. I'm going to bring this back home. Just stay with me here. Number two, they should have a commitment to be faithful to the teachings of the Catholic Church, Catholic universities. Now think about, in the back of your mind, just think about some Catholic universities, whether locally or across the country. Georgetown, my alma mater, University of Notre Dame. Think about these schools and whether or not they're practicing some of these things that they were called to by St. John Paul II to do, and the bishops have a particular responsibility to ensure that they are doing. So we're focused on, let's no longer have, any more parishes that start with the traditional Latin Mass, but what about our Catholic universities here? What else should they do? A commitment to the witness of the Catholic faith by Catholic administrators and teachers, especially those teaching the theological disciplines. I can't tell you how many theology teachers I had not committed to the Catholic faith, let alone teaching what the Catholic Church teaches in Catholic schools, Catholic universities. And they should care about the university's Catholic identity and mission. They should have a commitment to create a campus culture and environment that is expressive and supportive of a Catholic way of life. I just can think just off the top of my head of all the Catholic universities I've seen that have bent over backward to support LGBT causes like drag shows on Catholic campuses. And if any Catholic student raises any type of, maybe we shouldn't have a drag show here on campus, like they're labeled bigots and they're labeled as, the crazy wacko people. But, all right, here's the kicker here, folks. In accordance with the church teaching, this is from the document, in accordance with the church teaching and the universal law of the church, the local bishop has a responsibility to promote the welfare of the Catholic universities in his diocese and to watch over the preservation and strengthening of their Catholic character. Now, folks, I work with a bishop. Bishops are tremendously busy. I mean, you can't even imagine the stuff that's on their plate. But they received this document about the traditional Latin Mass. One more thing that the bishops kind of have to now focus on, and Pope Francis is making this a priority, right? And there's all these other priorities that are kind of pushed down and say, you got to focus on this, got to focus on that. Maybe if we spend some time forming our young people in our Catholic universities, forming people in what the purpose of Catholic education is, to be saints, to learn how to worship God. Like if you read documents from the Vatican on Catholic education, that's what it's about. It's teaching us how to worship, how to love God, how to work for Him, serve Him, know Him, love Him. But our bishops have a responsibility for the preservation and strengthening of the Catholic character of universities. Now ask yourselves, are we doing that? Are we doing that? Because if we saw these principles lived out in our Catholic universities today, we wouldn't be facing the world in need of what it's in need of, Jesus, today. Because we're not raising saints for the next generation. We're facing, because we failed to lead our own flocks, people like Flora Gill. She's a journalist. Second story of the day. From London, England. She is, writes for ST Style magazine, GQ, the Evening Standard, the Sunday Times magazine, Radio Times, host of Times Radio Split Opinion, popular commentator over there. Listen to what she just recently tweeted yesterday. Now, she removed this tweet because she faced some backlash. Praise God for that. But this is what she tweeted out. Someone needs to create porn for children. Someone needs to create porn for children. Hear me out, she says. Young teens are already watching porn, but they're finding hardcore, aggressive videos that give a terrible view of sex. They need entry-level porn! Exclamation mark. A softcore site where everyone asks for consent and no one gets choked, etc. Okay, first of all, Why in the HE double hockey sticks do we allow that type of smut and evil to even be accessible to anybody? Let alone, why in the world are we promoting putting pornography out there for kids? But this is becoming mainstream, folks. And I've covered this on the shows in the last couple of weeks. I mean, they're directly targeting kids. Whether it was a teacher in the Manhattan private school system that was showing pornography to kindergartners, whether it's in Chicago and you got fifth graders getting condoms. Get your kids off these social media platforms, which are also trying to promote and push your kids. I mean, if you give kids a smartphone, you give your kid a 12-year-old a smartphone, a 13-year-old a smartphone, you are giving them a XXX theater in their pockets. You have to realize that. You cannot just give your kids, just because everybody else is doing it, all the other kids have it, okay? Kids lived without cell phones for all of human history. They don't need it. They don't need it. If you're worried about where they're going, they need to contact you, then don't send them there if you're worried about it. Look, our society wants to feed your children to the wolves, and the wolves are out there. And I don't talk about this stuff because I like to talk about it. I talk about it so that you are aware that we are in a battle. You know, we wake up every day, we kind of go about our daily business. We're like, okay, another day. Oh, I got to change another diaper. I got to do this. Oh, I got to do this for work. Or, oh, I'm really frustrated by my family member, whatever it may be. Let it go. Focus on the things that are eternal. And those things that are eternal are those little children that are in your house, those bigger children that have left your house that you've become, estranged with. Reach out to them in love. Tell them about the love of Jesus Christ. They need to hear it today. Because otherwise we have individuals that we're electing into office, such as in California, who have promoted these laws I've covered in last week's shows, that because men are allowed to identify as females today, they're allowed to go into female prisons in California right now. Not only are we having women being abused in these prisons, but you now have these prisons, and this is all coming from the Women's Liberation Front. They're exposing this stuff. You're having women in these prisons being forced now, or being invited to consider abortion when they become pregnant from these men who are coming into the prisons. Read what Tamika Johnson had to say. She said, this is one of the prisoners. We must be prepared for the worst. We've been told that it's going to be off the hook. It's going to be jumping. Said that some of the staffers told her. They say we're going to need a facility that's going to be like a maternity ward. They say we're going to have an inmate program where inmates become nannies. And there's these signs going up promoting Plan B emergency contraception. Also, in their healthcare centers, their medical clinics, they've been given resources now, including information on how to obtain abortions, happening in California prisons. So we're sending males that are saying that they're females into prisons. But, oh, by the way, we're just preparing the females in those prisons. Oh, you might be pregnant here soon, but here's an abortion. Here's a way to get out of that. My God, what are we doing in this country? I don't know if I want to cover this or not. Fourth story, January 6th. So many thoughts here. I do support a full nonpartisan investigation into what happened on January 6th. And I think we might be surprised to find out what actually took place on January 6th. So I support if we can actually have a nonpartisan, non-political investigation into this, recognizing that there's always politics involved, but it can be as little as that as possible. I support that because what happened was inexcusable. You can't have people going in when you're certifying the elections into the house of the people, okay? You can't have it overrun as it was. So I want to know what happened on that day. I want to know everything that happened on that day. I want to know why it wasn't protected. Okay, if they had all these informants learning about the attack even beforehand, why wasn't there guards, the National Guard, there to protect the people's house? I want to know this. But I'm bothered by some of the ways that this is being used in the media, if you will. You had a commentator saying that he was triggered because he saw an American flag at the Olympics. He said this on a CBS morning show the other day. He works for ESPN. He said he was triggered, taken back to the January 6th Capitol riot and the rise of white nationalism because he saw the American flag flown at the Olympics. You have people saying that this is the worst attack ever on the Capitol, on American history. That this is worse than all the riots that took place that killed so many people across the country in 2020 and caused billions of dollars in damage. Now, serious threat. But look, if you go back in history, you know, every people in history thinks whatever happens to them is like the worst thing that ever happened. We'll go back in history and just read a little bit as far as what's happened in our nation's history. 1954, 5 congressmen were wounded on the floor when 4 terrorists opened fire from the visitor area. On March 1st, 1971, a bomb apparently planted by a group or a person protesting against the Vietnam War exploded in the early morning in the Senate wing of the Capitol. November 7th, 1983, a thunderstorm explosion tore through the second floor of the Capitol North Wing. The force of the device blew off the door of the office of a Democratic leader, Robert C. Byrd. Okay, so another bomb went off on 1983. 1915, police responded to the U.S. Capitol where an explosion had just rocked the Senate wing. Another bomb had gone off in the Capitol. In October of 2018, hundreds stormed a U.S. Senate building during the second week of confirming a Supreme Court justice for a position that holds longer than a presidential term. 302 people were arrested by Capitol Police. In 2020, the summer of 2020, the President of the United States and family were rushed to the White House bunker as insurrectionists scaled fencing, trying to overthrow the government. 60 Secret Service agents were wounded, 60, in the summer of 2020. One person was shot and killed during the January 6 riots. It was Ashley Babbitt. It was one of the protesters going into the facility. In this other particular circumstance, 60 Secret Service agents were wounded. In 1998, 2 Capitol Police officers, Officer Jacob Chestnut and Detective John M. Gibson, died in the line of duty. An armed assailant stormed past a U.S. Capitol security checkpoint. He made a deep into the building where he then was later shot in 1998. All terrible attacks on the U.S. Capitol, including January 6th. I'm not saying January 6th is not a terrible thing. But how did the media approach these other things? No bomb went off on January 6th. There's been bombs that have gone off in the Capitol, though, before this. I'm just saying you have to look historically and contextually at these situations because, again, you have the media taking this and now saying the American flag is about white nationalism. It's about racism. I mean, how are they using or manipulating the events to advance a particular position? That's all I'm saying. That's all all right. Number 5, particularly talking about taking something to advance a particular position. All right. The mask mandates have come back, and I'm getting it from all angles. The fear is coming back, and it's coming back quick, and it's coming back strong. As if we have not learned anything from the beginning of this pandemic. The federal government out there again, everybody's got a vaccine. Look, I'm on CNN right now. Here's one of the headlines. If vaccinated people get infected, they have as much virus in their bodies as unvaccinated people, though the vaccinated are safer from severe disease. So this is what we've learned. If you get the vaccination, you're going to have a little bit less of the severeness of the illness. However, you can still be carrying the illness. So who's being blamed in this entire situation right now? We have a pandemic, we're told, of the unvaccinated. And if everyone just get vaccinated, then we would be okay. Well, why do the vaccinated have to wear masks? Because they're carrying the virus. But blame the unvaccinated. Sure. Scare everybody to death. And if anybody brings up any counterpoints, like Dave Rubin on the Rubin Report, you know what happened to him? He just said, hey, I'm kind of against the federal vaccine mandates. Boom, Twitter locked his account, 12 hours. Can't tweet that. Now, he's a media influencer, okay? Millions of people literally watch his stuff. They're not going to block me. 12 people watch my stuff. With that being said, I'm reminded by a quote from Samuel Adams, one of our great founding fathers of the nation, who wrote this. Quote, no people will tamely surrender their liberties, nor can be easily subdued when knowledge is diffused and virtue is preserved. So no one's going to give up their liberties if there's broad knowledge about what's going on, nor if they have virtue. If they have virtue, we're not going to give up our liberties. On the contrary, though, Adams writes, when people are universally ignorant and debauched in their manners, they will sink under their own weight without the aid of foreign invaders. We have a country that's not very virtuous right now. We have a country where knowledge is not diffused. Knowledge is just with these hand of experts at the CDC that even though people don't trust them, they're going along with what they have to say. I want to encourage you on this stuff. Read as much as you can. Read as much as you can. Learn as much as you can. But look, I mean, so much of this stuff does not add up. And I am totally Catholic, for example, when it comes to the issue of immigration. I want millions of immigrants that come to this country every single year. They add so much to this country. They're such a gift to this country. But if we were really worried, this federal government right now, about the spread of COVID-19 and variants coming into the country, don't you think we would be a little bit more worried about the security of the southern borders? I mean, there's literally hundreds of thousands of people coming in across the southern border, and the federal government does seem to be concerned. But yet, if you live in Washington, D.C. or New York City and you're going to a restaurant, then they're super concerned. And you better wear a mask and you better be vaccinated. But hundreds of thousands of people coming across the southern border, well, we're not so concerned. Again, nothing against people, many of them just seeking a better life. I'm for immigration. I'm for people seeking a better life in this country. But if we're not at all concerned about that at all, but we're just concerned about restaurants in New York City and Washington, D.C. and the heartland, something doesn't add up here, folks. All right, feel good story of the day. Let me end on a positive note. A few different global competitions. Miss Universe has been awarded since 1952. There's a new competition, though. It started in 2007. It's called Mrs. Universe. It's for married women to be recognized for the great work that they're doing, either raising a family or out in society. Victoria Peterson just been awarded Mrs. Universe. She's from Defiance, Ohio, right here in Northwest Ohio. Fantastic, amazing. But listen to her story. Age 12 years old. It's when she had to enter foster care. She was never adopted all the way through age 18 when she aged out of the foster care system without an official adoption. But just this month, she was crowned as Mrs. Universe. She wrote on her Facebook, "Glory be to God forever and ever. Amen." Her platform is dedicated to orphans and widows, but is especially focused on the youth of the foster care system. She's pro-life, has spoken out against abortion, against preborn children, despite the arguments. And how many times have you heard this? You know, we got to have abortion. It's a necessary evil. I mean, what are you going to do with all the kids in foster care? I mean, first of all, what a terrible thing to say about kids in foster care, that they're better off aborted than being in foster care, number one. But number two, we hear this so often that because the foster care system isn't fixed and we have kids in foster care, we should abort children. I mean, it's just disgusting. But look, I think Victoria's story is just proof positive that, yeah, even if you have a difficult life, even if you have to go into foster care, who knows how God will use you? Who knows the plans that God has for you? So as I began this show, folks, I know there's a lot of craziness going on right now, but go to Jeremiah 29:11. He tells the prophet Jeremiah, and he tells us today, "I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, and they are plans for your welfare, for a future filled with hope, not for harm." Difficult times might be ahead. There might be challenging times. There might be more crosses that we have to face as a church. But if our bishops step up, if we lay people step up to the table and say, you know what, our Catholic institutions, let's make them Catholic again. And our churches, our parishes, let's make them Catholic again. We'll see a world transformed. We'll see a country renewed. All we have to do is be Catholic. So let's do it. We'll see you next week on The Catholic Citizen. We're here. We're Catholic.